short for a stormtrooper?
But before I take up too much more time here, let's finally get into the discussion that everyone has been wanting to talk about, which is the Last Jedi panel. Now, of course, like I said, they knew how to kick it off right, and very, very interestingly, guess who is hosting this Last Jedi panel, appropriately enough? Josh Gad. Yeah, I mean, I get a really, really big kick out of Josh Gad hosting this panel. It was appropriate, obviously, because of all that fun stuff we saw on Twitter about him harassing Daisy Ridley and all that. So here comes Josh Gad out to host, and he really did a fantastic job. So he brought out Kathleen Kennedy, who else, of course? Kathleen Kennedy, of course, was there. And then writer-director Rian Johnson, who everybody just jumped out of their seat and gave him a huge standing ovation. Well-deserved. He's such an amazing person. And that he actually revealed that he was hanging outside with the crowd who was waiting there for hours and hours and hours and hours on end to get up to see the Last Jedi panel. Rian Johnson was actually outside with the crowd with all those people out there for like 4 hours, I think he said, just hanging out with them, just getting to know people. And I mean, that's the same thing that kind of like J.J. Abrams and other people were doing last year. But it's just so good to hear because people actually gave him a standing ovation for that, because like I said, J.J. Abrams did a little bit of that, but Rian Johnson was out there for 4 hours hanging out with the fans. I mean, that's connection. That's connection right there, man. I have so much respect for Rian Johnson for doing stuff like that. He's such an amazing person. And also, when they asked them about where they are with The Last Jedi right now, they said that they're still editing the film actually right now, but they're in the very last stages of editing, so it's in the last stages of post-production, which means it's almost done, which is really exciting to hear. Then Kathleen Kennedy went on to say some incredible things about Rian Johnson, about his writing and about his direction. She said that he writes as beautifully as he directs, which is, I mean, an amazingly high compliment. She also said that his comedy for the film was on point, which, as we all know, is very, very important for a Star Wars film. You have to get that comedy right. That's one of the things that The Force Awakens didn't quite get right, at least on my end, how I felt about that. So hopefully Rian Johnson get the comedy down point in this film. And also, Kathleen Kennedy said, probably gave Rian Johnson the highest compliment of his career. She told him that he was well on his way to becoming one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And I mean, when you have Kathleen Kennedy telling you that you are on your way, all of the filmmakers, this woman has worked with Spielberg, she's worked with Lucas, I mean, you name it, she's been there in the business forever, and she's sitting there telling Rian Johnson, I mean, and you could just see it on his face, he didn't know what to do. The poor guy just like, oh my goodness, like, how do I respond to this, how do I follow this up? But, he's such a great guy, introverted people like that, the same way Gareth Edwards is, very introverted people, they're very special people, very smart people. That's why I really love Rian Johnson, really attached to him for this movie. Can't wait to see what he's going to bring. Rian Johnson also shared some of his photography as well, which was excellent. He said that he brought the same camera with him that he was using on the set of Looper to take these pictures, these behind-the-set photos. He was sharing some of his photography from set. It's absolutely excellent. I really hope we get a chance to see this later. Maybe there's some kind of like website or something like that that's just dedicated to Rian Johnson's photography from Episode 8 and from set. Maybe they'll let him continue to do it down the line in Star Wars movies. It was absolutely excellent. They showed many shots that he took. It was so good. I can't wait to see more. I've got to check it out. I've got to see more because, as you guys know, I'm a photographer too. I do a lot of Star Wars themed photography, and so to see that was just mind-blowing. I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And that's what I'm kind of doing on a small scale right now. So maybe this will be a new thing that blows up. People will start to do their own Star Wars photography, and this will become like a new thing that we can really start and get going, which would be just absolutely awesome. After this, they continued to honor Carrie Fisher, of course. You have to at this Last Jedi panel. I thought it was so incredible that one of the things that Rian Johnson revealed was that he connected to her as a writer first. which I thought was really important. And he spoke about these improv, he called it stream of consciousness discussions and conversations they would have that actually became lines of dialogue in episode 8. So he would just sit there and just talk to her about whatever, and just kind of, they would just let their dialogue just run and just flow. And what he did was he would just take these mad notes down, and those notes actually ended up becoming dialogue in episode 8. So when we hear Leia talk in episode 8, this is like the mad stream of consciousness dialogue coming straight from Carrie Fisher, basically on screen, just restructured into the Star Wars universe. So this movie is going to be very, very, very inclusive of not just Leia as a character, but Carrie Fisher as a person is going to be coming across as a writer in this movie, and almost as a director in a lot of ways too, which was just fascinating to hear and so good to hear. And then finally, of course, at this point, they finally bring Daisy Ridley out onto stage, and Josh Gad continues, of course, to heckle her. They had some really, really hilarious moments. Just Josh Gad just wouldn't let up. He just kept, heckling Daisy Ridley about all these big questions, and she has to keep that stone face on. She can't say anything. And then. They spoke of, she said something very, very interesting about Luke, though, when she finally started to open up about what she could say about The Last Jedi. She spoke very differently about Luke. She said that that your heroes sometimes aren't always who we think they are, and that because, what did we say? No, they aren't who we expect them to be. Meaning that when she finally meets Luke as this hero, as this, this grand Jedi Master, this hero of the rebellion and of the Jedi Order, Luke's not who she thought she was. Now, immediately, this sent up, signals for me, just right off the bat. Like, this is total Grey Jedi talk. This is total Grey Jedi talk, because, the first thing I spoke of was, the first thing I thought of was, she gets there, she starts interacting with Luke, and then slowly she begins to discover, wait a minute, this guy's not a Jedi. Like, this guy's not embracing Jedi beliefs, this guy's not talking about the Jedi, or at least he's speaking very differently about the Jedi, and it's because, guess what, Luke is Grey. And so maybe this is where some of the animosity comes from Rey, because they said that Rey and Luke were going to be fighting a lot for this, or not a lot for this movie, but at some point during this movie there's going to be a lot of animosity. I bet you that's where the animosity comes from, is this reluctancy to say, well, hold on a second, like, I came on to you to train as a Jedi, and now you're kind of turning your back and saying, no, I'm Grey now. So I bet you that's the conflict. That's where the conflict's going to lie there. Rian Johnson also spoke about the values of Star Wars, of course, which George Lucas was talking about very brilliantly the first day, how Star Wars has always been about the story and about the values. And throughout, they showed lots of awesome photos from set, which were absolutely amazing. You guys, if you rewatch that portion of the panel, you'll see all these great photos from set. They even had one of Finn and Captain Phasma together with her helmet off. I don't know if that's an indication, if that was just an in-between set thing. Maybe she could have her helmet off, I don't know, but there are lots of great pictures there that they showed all the way out through set. And then at this point, Josh Gad did something absolutely amazing. Guess what he does? He brings none other than BB-8 out on stage. That's right. And you're expecting another big character reveal, maybe another human character. But when you think about it, droids are people too in the Star Wars universe. If you're going to bring someone out on stage, you're going to bring R2-D2 out, you're going to bring BB-8 out on stage, because droids are people in the Star Wars universe too. They're stars too. And then Josh Gad sat there and had some very, very, very funny dialogue between him. I gotta say, Josh Gad really grew on me as a host. I wasn't too sure about him at first, but he was absolutely hilarious. That little dialogue they had going between him and BB-8, talking about the contract and everything. I mean, it was absolutely hilarious. He's a really great host, and I honestly hope they get him back. He was really cool. He was a really cool host. And Rian Johnson said that BB-8, interestingly, here's another interesting comment to take away. Rian Johnson said that BB-8 was going to be the Buster Keaton of this film. So really, really interesting comments, because, I really can't wait to see, he actually said that he can't wait for us to see what BB-8 is going to do in this film, and I can't wait, because Buster Keaton is a really, really interesting comparison to make, because it makes me think, like, BB-8's almost going to go down, like, a more, like, comedy route, of course, that, like like that often happens with the droids like R2-D2 and C-3PO, but it's going to be almost like BB-8 sharing his gadgets. Like he's going to have way more gadgets to show, and he's going to be interacting with the environment way more than he was in The Force Awakens. Have so much more to do. Maybe even a little bit of slapstick comedy or something like that that might actually work for the film. So really, way more excited to see what BB-8 is going to be doing in this film as well now. Now at this point, we have to bring out John Boyega, of course. So, of course, we bring out John Boyega, and he did. And he, John Boyega actually revealed a lot of interesting things about Finn in this short little time that we had with him on stage. He said that Finn has been sleeping, but he's finally back in action now. And he also said that he's not playing around, which means that when Finn finally comes back on screen, we're going to immediately see John Boyega going at it full force on screen. Like, he's not playing around. Finn is back for action. He's probably out for some blood, you know what I'm saying? He's probably looking for a weapon, looking to get right back into it. And then he also revealed, which was an early thought of mine, I was wondering if Finn and Poe might be buddies for this film, like kind of like the whole buddy cop thing going on missions together in the film, and John Boyega actually confirmed that yes, that is indeed the case. Him and Poe are going to be spending a lot of time together. Whenever he said something like, you know, whenever there's a mission to go on, they're going on it together. Whenever there's something to do, they're doing it together. Whenever there's a mission to fly, a ground mission to do, some kind of covert ops to do, they're involved with it together. They're always doing something together. And like I said, I had thought that was probably the case going into Episode 8. Now we see it. Now John Boyega confirms that that is the case, and you know, I'm really interested to see how they're going to play out that buddy dynamic in the film. If they're going to get separated at some point, or if the whole point is for them to stay together and to work on missions throughout the entire film. And John Boyega also said another small interesting tidbit was that he said it's going to be a test for Finn whether or not he is going to join the Resistance or keep running from the First Order. So obviously we know that he's not going to join up with the First Order, but we hear a hint in here that Finn may not be all the way on board with the Resistance either. Could Finn possibly be striking out on his own at the end of Episode 8? Maybe as we enter into Episode 9, Finn is on his own. He's not with anybody. Maybe him and Poe have some kind of a falling out, and as we enter into Episode 9, he's on his own. You know, like you said, it's a test for him. Will he join up with the Resistance, or will he just kind of branch out and do his own thing? Which will be you know, interesting to see how that plays out, especially for the end of Episode 8, where everybody is going to end up at the end of Episode 8. Now, Rian Johnson came back in to speak about something here at this point, which was something that all fans have been wanting to hear about for a long time, which was the state of the galaxy in Episode 8. And while we did get a little bit, a little small taste of information about the state of the galaxy, Rian Johnson actually confirmed here that the galaxy is indeed in a very severe state of chaos. He was commenting about how the First Order had lost Starkiller Base, but before they lost Starkiller Base, they were able to wipe out the entire Republic, and that has sent the galaxy basically into complete chaos. And he said that when we start Episode 8, the First Order will be immediately on the attack, which means that the First Order was prepared to go into war. This was a planned assault probably for a long time, and when we enter into Episode 8, the First Order is basically going to be going full war, right out into the galaxy, just sweeping over planets like waves, and you know, they could possibly set this up exactly like Empire Strikes Back, where the Walker assault is actually one of the first sequences in the film, is the First Order just coming right after the Resistance and attacking them. So something else to keep in mind definitely there. Will this Walker assault be one of the first, or maybe the very first opening action sequence of the entire movie? Which would be really exciting to hear, obviously. Now, Ryan Johnson actually, he was talking about some brand new characters, and he finally did something else that I personally have been waiting for a long time, which was to finally see Kelly Marie Tran come out and talk about her character. Now, Kelly Marie Tran is playing a character called Rose. Now, Rose is a member of the Resistance. By the way, that photo that they showed of her behind them at Celebration was just absolutely fantastic. She looks so great. Now, Rose is a maintenance worker in the Resistance. And Ryan Johnson, the reason, the whole story behind her character is that she's supposed to be the Luke Skywalker of this film in a lot of ways, meaning that she's not the main character of this film. But what happens is, you know how Luke was just kind of like a simple farm boy, and then he got caught up in this huge adventure that turned out into something else? That's who Rose is in this film. She's this character that starts out as this maintenance worker, but then she gets wrapped up in this war with the Resistance and the First Order and all these other factions, probably, and she turns out to be one of the most important characters of the entire film. So I was just so you know, I was thinking that maybe she was going to be from another planet, maybe she was going to be a tank driver or something like that, but I think that Ryan Johnson, you know, you could tell this in his eyes, you know, he has a lot of vision for Kelly Marie Tran's character, Rose, so there's a lot that he's going to do with this character. I have a lot of trust in Ryan Johnson. If there's a reason that he wanted to bring this character on for specific dynamics, there's a reason. You know, I trust Ryan Johnson because he knows how to make Star Wars great, and you know, I honestly cannot wait to see what he's going to do with Rose and what Kelly Marie Tran herself is going to do with that character. And at long last, who comes out to round out the entire panel, the Last Jedi panel? The Jedi Master himself, Mark Hamill. Always so fantastic to see. Every time he walks out on stage, it's like this bright light has just entered the room, and it just brings this big grin to my face. I can't stop smiling. I can't stop listening to him, listening to his stories about Star Wars, and just celebrating his love for the fans and all his stories and everything. So Mark Hamill comes out, and he shared a great story about both Ryan Johnson and him being scared for this project. You know, Mark Hamill talked about how he opened up to Ryan Johnson at one point, and he said, you know, Ryan, I'm scared. I'm scared about doing this. And Ryan Johnson said something very interesting. He said, you know what, Mark, I am too. I'm scared about doing this project too. And Mark Hamill said that the reason he considers Ryan Johnson one of the greatest directors of all time and one of the greatest directors that he's ever worked with is that Ryan Johnson could actually admit that to him. He admitted that he was scared going into that project. And in a lot of ways, how can you not respect Ryan Johnson for having that fear? And maybe that fear is what drove him to make such an incredible story, because you know this guy has been working on the Episode 8 script since The Force Awakens was basically in production. So he's been working on the script for a very, 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 very long time, and he's put a lot of work into that. And I think that fear, the fear of us fans, really, when you think about it, really drove him to make a fantastic story. As I start getting into the trailer now here, I'm going to start discussing the trailer here, because the trailer drops soon after. You'll see that Ryan Johnson is just a very unique director.